everyone.
Thank you, Dana. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Session 2 Facilitator, Advanced Communicator Bronze, Competent Leader, Area 41 Director, Tyler Spain. Tyler. You're muted, Tyler.
Yeah, I'm unmuting. Good morning, everyone. Can you see and hear me? Awesome. It is my honor today to introduce our next speaker. And not only he's a great speaker, but I also consider him a good friend. Dr. Lamondre Pugh is a passionate speaker, seasoned trainer, and enthusiastic content creator. He serves as the Chief Sustainability Officer for Room Global Impact. He hosts several podcasts, and he's the creator of the video series Moment of Impact. Using colorful stories and stirring facts, Lamondre touches the heart of his audience and inspires waves of change. Each message that he delivers is dynamic and unique in its experience. Today, Lamondre will share with us the power of purpose. Lamondre Pugh.
Thank you so much, Tyler. And Toastmasters, thank you for allowing me to share with you this morning. In each of our lives, there's a moment that we come to, and that usually is a moment of decision. And when I say a moment of decision, I'm not talking about one of these half-hearted, well, I think I might reckon, well, I might want to, well, maybe, I don't know. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you have to make a decision that may have some real consequences behind it. Where if I go left, that could be one outcome. But if I go right, that could be a totally different outcome. But either way, what you know is that there is a consequence, and the decision that you make will yield results in your life, whether positive or negative, for years to come. Just like the decision that I made when I decided that this was the way that I was going to go, when I decided that there were no other options for me and my family. And that's the day that I decided that I was the sexiest man on Zoom. That's right, that's me, the sexiest man on Zoom. And honestly, the reason that I say that is because if I don't believe it, number one, who else will? But number two, let's lighten up a little bit. Let's just kind of take it easy a bit. Again, Toastmasters, I am honored to be with you today and to share the power of purpose. And it is about a decision. The decision that you made when you joined Toastmasters, the decision that you made when you said either that I want to increase my leadership skills or improve on my leadership skills or my presentation skills or my speaking skills or my organizational skills, whatever it was, you made a decision to make a change. There was intent to that. There was purpose to that. And today I want to share with you the power of purpose, the power of determination, the strength or force of resoluteness. What is that about? Well, the way that we're going to work through this today is I'm going to share with you 4 eyes. And no, I don't mean, that I have contact lenses or glasses on, but I'm going to share with you the 4 eyes that spell out the power of purpose. And I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about my story and where I come from. I am 47 years old. I'm recently divorced, and you can't tell it by looking at the Zoom, but I have spinal muscular atrophy. And spinal muscular atrophy is a progressive neurological disorder that pretty much affects all of my voluntary muscles. Just to give you an idea of what that means is that I have the same functional limitations as someone who may have quadriplegia, except I don't have any paralysis. So I can't walk, I can't bathe myself. I can't feed myself, but I can do pretty much whatever it is that I want to do, and I have done so. But when I was first born, at 18 months, I was diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy. And at the time, the advice given to my then teenage mother was to put me in a home and to let me die because I wasn't expected to live to be 5 years old. And of course, this was devastating news to a young mother who had already had a child before me. And she was like, well, I can't do that. What should I do? And then they said, well, what have you been doing up to this point? She said, well, I've just been loving him. And they said, well, then that's what you do. You take him home and you love him. And that's exactly what my mom did. But as I grew up, you deal with things, especially being a child with a disability, you realize, hey, I'm a little bit different. I'm a little bit different than everybody else. I'm struggling to walk, or either I don't run or I can't run as fast. And it actually had a real impression on me. And when I was early teenage years, I have an uncle who was a bishop in a church, and he sat me down one day, and I was going through things in life, and I asked him, Uncle, why is this my lot? What is the deal with this? And he said to me, he said, son, I'm going to tell you this. Your disability is not your problem. If it's anybody's problem, it's God's problem. So you let him handle that. But what you have to do is you have to find out your purpose. You have to find out what it is that you're here to do. You have to find out the intention of every breath that you breathe. What is that? What is that? That conversation, that single conversation, changed the trajectory of my life. Because first of all, that was the first time someone outside of my immediate family recognized that, wait a minute, there is something greater than your situation. That even with your disability, with your situation, with the home life that you've come from, there's something that you're supposed to do, young man. And it's your responsibility to do it. All that other stuff, let God handle that. But you focus on what it is that you were put on this earth for. So it gave me a sense of intention. And that's the first I, intention. Why? Why do we do the things that we do? Why are you here? I like to call it the fingerprint of God in your life. Why are you breathing? Why are you drawing air? And even through my life, after that conversation, all of those things really became clearly focused to me. Now, of course, growing up, you go through things and you become a wayward child and all those things. And I did all of that. I did all of the things that they said I would never do. I did all of the things that they said I wasn't supposed to do. And much to the chagrin of my mother, I did it with a smile. And I keep smiling all the way through it. But the truth is, that intention, even when we think about the things that we do now, identifying the why, what is the intention of the presentation? What is the intention of taking on this role? What is the intention of starting that business? What is the intention of becoming involved in the organization? When you clearly define the intention, when you clearly define the why, it gives clarity to thought, it gives clarity to direction, it gives clarity to aim. And what it does is it helps us to be able to block out more effectively the distractions that come, because as each and every single one of you who are on this call right now, you know that those distractions come. You know that in the middle of your going through what it is that you do, that life simply happens. I often work with boards and different organizations, and one of the questions that I get all the time is, how do you deal with all of the distractions and opportunities that come your way? Because we recognize that not every good opportunity is the right opportunity. So how do you deal with that? And I always guide people back to this. I always guide these organizations back to this. What is your intention? What is the mission? What is the aim? What is the goal? And if it does not support the mission, the vision, the aim, or the goal, then you know right away that that probably is not the opportunity for you, or that is not where you need to be focused at, because it does not serve the mission. It does not serve the aim. It does not serve the intention. So sure, many things are going to come, but having a clearly defined intention, having a clearly defined aim will help you through that, no matter what it is. Then the next step is initiative. The next I is initiative. Now, when we think about initiative in this sense, I'm talking about taking action, taking the steps. You heard the last speaker say, when someone asked the question about, what do you do when you're starting a business? And her reply was, jump. And of course, my good friend Jim made the comment that, yeah, you jump and you build the wings as you're going down. Well, believe me, we know exactly what that's like. I often liken it to building the airplane as you're flying it. And believe me, especially in these times, the way that things have changed now, we're definitely all becoming pros at building the airplane while we're flying it. But having that intention, having that initiative to get started, that's a big key to it. And when I say that, I'm talking about making a plan and executing on that plan. Saying, you know what, I have to get up and do something. I have to, as I said before, make that decision. Now, when I was growing up, I used to spend a lot of time with my grandfather. My grandfather was a really unique character. And when I say he was a really unique character, I mean exactly that. He was a really unique character. In fact, I often say that he was, if you all remember the Looney Tunes, you remember the Looney Tunes? You remember the big rock and roll rooster, foghorn leghorn? I say, boy, I say. This was my grandfather. My grandfather was foghorn leghorn in the flesh, and I kid you not. And in him being such a big character and a big feature of my life, my granddaddy was also a real trickster. And if ever you were lost, or if ever you asked him for directions on how to get someplace that you said you wanted to go, this would be his reply. He would say, now what you're going to do is you're going to go down here and you're going to take a left. And you're going to go down a little bit more and you're going to take another left. Okay, all right, 2 lefts. Then you're going to go down here a little bit more and you're going to take another left. Okay, no problem. And finally, when you get there, you're going to take another left. It's like, wait a minute, Granddaddy, that doesn't make any sense. If I take that many lefts, I'm just going to end up exactly where I'm at. And he'd say, there you go. Now, here's the thing. With my grandfather, his whole thing with that was, if you don't map out your way, you're going to be lost, because somebody's going to send you in circles and you're going to end up exactly where you are, lost and confused. So it's so important that even if you're thinking about the intention, that once you take the initiative, a part of that initiative is effective planning and executing through it. And here's the thing, that has served me so well, is understanding that it's not just about having the desire to do something, because I know you all have heard it as well. People can get really passionate about things, and passion is great. Passion is something that drives you. Passion is something that makes you get up in the morning. But honestly, without some direction, without the get up and go to actually do it, without the willingness to execute on those actions, the truth is, we won't get anywhere. We'll just be burned up with whatever passions we have, and we'll still be in the same spot, or simply going in circles. And as my granddaddy said, there you go. And so when we start thinking about moving from one level to the next, and having the initiative and having a clear intention, the next piece of it is that we have to trust who we are. We have to trust our intuition, and that's the third eye, intuition. When I was in college, me and a group of friends of mine, we started a company called Techno Angels. And Techno Angels, and this was late 90s, early 2000s, Techno Angels was a company that we built that what we did was we provided help desk services for large organizations, engineering level help desk services for large organizations like Microsoft and Cisco and Duke Energy. And, you know, this was the ground up. We built it from the very beginning of this. And at that time, no one was doing that kind of thing, because the thing that really set us apart, well, we were using people with disabilities who were engineers in their own homes to provide these help desk services. And these were not customer-facing help desk services. These were engineering-level help desk services. And what made this so revolutionary at the time is these engineers were in their homes. And this was before the time of broadband internet, before the time broadband internet access was available to anyone in their homes. So we were actually running ISDN lines to people's homes in order for them to fulfill this work. Well, in order to do this, we had to go out and pitch it. We had to go out and sell these services to the different organizations. And we were pretty successful in it. In fact, we were so successful that we ended up with $2 million worth of sales in 8 months of the launch. Now, here's the thing that was about this, and this is why I bring intuition into this at this point. I remember we were in San Francisco, and it was myself, it was the distinguished professor, it was the technologist and assistive technology expert. And I remember sitting in that room and looking around and seeing who was in that room with me. And at this time, I did not have a degree or anything. And I thought to myself, what am I doing here? Here we have the head of Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and he's on my team. And here we've got these seasoned professionals that know so much about this. Why am I in this room? And as I was sitting in the cafeteria at Hewlett Packard, waiting to give a presentation with this incredible panel of people, one of the executives from HP walked into the cafeteria. And as I had my head down, I glanced up and our eyes met. And so quickly I dropped my head. And it was one of those moments where I wish I could snatch that half a second right back out of existence. Because at that time, I knew that he knew that I was unsure, that I was insecure about why I was there. Now, he was extremely nice and he was still extremely gracious, but I knew that I had let him see that at that moment I was vulnerable, that at that moment I was insecure. We went through with the presentation, and the presentation went really well. Things went really well during that presentation. But in the back of my head, the whole time, I was still thinking, if I could just get that half a second back. Because now I felt that there was a chink in the armor, and I still felt like, what am I doing here? Well, I told you, in 8 months, we did over $2 million in sales for that company. And when asked, as you go through and you find out, well, what made you buy from me or what made you not buy from me? When asked, what made those executives make the decisions that they made to go with us, this is what they said. Yes, we looked at the technology. Yes, we looked at the offerings. We saw all of that. But what we saw was the video of that young man speaking and talking about what this means in terms of society and what it means for actually everyday people. And that's what made us make that decision. And here I was trepidating about what was I doing in the room. I didn't have the credentials. I didn't have the experience. I didn't have any of those things that my colleagues had. But it was because of the ability to communicate the idea of what Techno Angels was, is the reason that they went forth with it. So here's the thing that I learned from that it was not necessarily about me being what I thought was on their level, but it was about me trusting what was inside of me. It was about me trusting the fact that I belonged in that room just like everybody else. And I'm sure that they also had insecurities, that they also had fears. And it's okay. And I will even tell you that right now, particularly with what's going on in the country and in the world, we all have some trepidations. We all have some insecurities. We all have some fears that we're working through. Day after day, we see numbers of COVID-19. We see the political climate that we're in right now. And let's just be honest. It's a time that we're not so secure. It's a time where we recognize that when everybody had to go home, that, well, wait a minute, the world has changed. So what does that mean? That means that a lot of insecurity came out, but it still goes to trusting who and what you are. In fact, years after that, even now, maybe as close as 2 years ago, I had been married for 17 years, and my wife and I separated, and I was facing a divorce, and the job prospects were not looking good for me. My business was slow because the economy had slowed down so much that the type of work that I do, I wasn't really getting the gigs that I was getting before. And I was just in an absolute mess. Again, feeling really bad about who I am and what my contribution was. Because at this point in my life, impact is important to me. At this point in my life, significance is really important to me. And I was really feeling terrible. But then in October of 2018, something happened. I received a letter. And this letter read that because of the work that I had done throughout the course of my life, because of the contributions that I had made, particularly to humanity in terms of disability and diversity and inclusion, that this college decided to confer on me an honorary doctorate degree in humanities. And I'll tell you, what blew me away about that was because I didn't even realize people had seen the work that I was doing. I didn't even realize that anyone really saw what I was doing outside of the people that I directly impacted. In other words, an institution recognized that there was value that I brought not only to putting a paycheck in my bank account, not just so that I could have a place to live, but I made a contribution to society. And again, that was about trusting what was in me. I need you to understand that when you stand to deliver a presentation, that when you stand to go after a career change or whatever it is, trust what's in you. Yes, the credentials, yes, all of those things are wonderful, but trust what's in you. Trust the fact that you have an intention, that intention, based on that intention, you took some initiative, you made something happen. And now it's time to trust that what's in you will carry you through. And then finally, find the inspiration. This is the fourth I. Now, when I talk about finding the inspiration, I want to share with you a lesson that I learned a long time ago that still carries with me to this day. When I was about 9 years old, I was at a school called Brockman. Brockman was a school that was designed for nothing but students with disabilities. And the disabilities ranged from severely disabled, as I would have been considered as, to profoundly disabled. And these would be students with multiple disabilities And many times, the students who had severe disabilities were able to assist the students who had profound disabilities. And I was able to assist with a young girl by the name of Lydia. Now, Lydia was 16 years old, but she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk. Don't know if Lydia could hear or see, but there was one thing that Lydia could do, and that was smile. And Lydia had the biggest, toothiest grin you could ever imagine seeing. It was the kind of smile that when you saw Lydia smile, you knew that no matter what was going on, no matter what was happening, things were going to be okay. It was really like a warm ray of sunshine. And I remember every day that I would help with Lydia, she would present that smile to me. She would just grin all over the place. And honestly, even at 9 years old, it made me swell up so big because whatever it was, Lydia was smiling at me. And I remember that once I left Brockman, because I was mainstreamed into regular public school system, once I left Brockman, I heard years later that Lydia passed away. But I remembered her. It's like she just would not leave my memory. In fact, Lydia taught me the lesson of finding value in places that most people wouldn't see value, of finding the good in situations. And I remember giving presentations for, Fortune 500 companies around the country and telling Lydia's story and emphasizing the point of finding value, of looking for the inspiration. And a few years after that, I was an adult. I'd already been speaking and traveling around the country. I remember being in the mall, and I remember hearing a lady talking about her Lydia. And as I looked back, it was Lydia's grandmother, her primary caretaker. And when I saw her, I went up to her and I was like, ma'am, I went to Brockman and I knew Lydia. And her face lit up. And as she spoke about Lydia, she talked about how much she loved her and how hurt she was when Lydia passed away. And one of the things that I said to her, I was like, ma'am, I will tell you this. Lydia's memory has resonated throughout this country because I'm a speaker. And I told her the stories that I told about Lydia. And I said, ma'am, I will tell you, Hewlett Packard knows about Lydia. Microsoft knows about Lydia. These Fortune 500 companies, they know about Lydia. She was like, what do they know about her? I was like, ma'am, she smiled at me and the impact that it had on me. And the thing that I said to her and the thing that I realized is that I'm not saying Lydia's only purpose was to smile. I'm not saying her only purpose was to smile at me. But what I am saying, the fact that she did what she could and she shared that with me, I found purpose in that. And that purpose has impacted people that never met her, but now they know her name. Just like now you know her name and you knew what she could do. And here's the thing, inspiration is an inside job. I can't tell you what should inspire you. I can't tell you where you find inspiration because I'm a musician also. And there'll be times I would hear a dump truck and it'll give me an inspiration for a drum line. Or I'll hear a plane flying overhead and it'll give me inspiration for a bass line. Or I'll see a sunset and the lyrics or the words will flow from me like a river. No one said that these things should inspire me. And no one dictated that it would touch me the way that it did. But what it was I found that inspiration. I found the thing to create those moves and those references. And so I encourage you to find the inspiration. So intuition, initiative, intention, and inspiration, the 4 I's that really drive the power of purpose. Doretha Brand said, all that is necessary to break the spell of inertia and frustration is this: act as if it were impossible to fail. That's the talisman, the formula, the command of right about face that turns us from failure toward success. As you move forward in your journey, whether it be through Toastmasters, your career, your family move. Move forward with purpose. Move forward with intention, initiative, intuition, and inspiration. And you will find that your success, your failures, your circumstances, your situations, your highs and your lows will all serve your purpose. You're here for a reason. And whether you believe in a higher power, karma, intuition, whatever it is, you're here to fulfill that purpose. It will drive you forward. Now we have a few minutes left for questions or comments, and I'm absolutely open for that. So.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Please either send your chats to our facilitator for this session, Tyler Spain, who is a co-host, or to me, and we will read them out. So send your questions or comments to Tyler, and we've got about 20 minutes, I think, Donna, right now for Q&A. So we've got a little bit of time, and thank you very much for that very informative and delightful conversation.
Thank you.
Remember Lydia.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tyler, the floor is yours.
Once again, thank you, Lamadre, for that very impactful presentation. You always deliver, as I know you would.
I certainly do appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I'll tell you, even as you move forward with this, just remember that today is the perfect day to start living on purpose. Live big, live full, and live authentic. God bless.
We have a question from Valerie, which is, how do you grow happiness and joy in hard situations to inspire others?
Again, and thank you for the question, Valerie. Again, I believe that inspiration is an inside job. So I believe that the best way that you that you find happiness is, first of all, to look within. Because even in tough situations, believe me, the fact that you can realize that, hey, this is a tough situation, that's a plus. That's a plus, because there are people who are struggling so badly that they can't even assess the situation that they're in. So the fact that you're breathing means that you have an opportunity to get up. You know, one of the biggest successes I had in my life came on the heels of some of the biggest failures that I've had. So the fact that I have the opportunity to get back up again, the fact that I have the opportunity to move forward, says that there is something that I can be grateful for. And I'll tell you, an attitude of gratitude will change your perception more than the situation, but what you will find then is a joy that keeps coming, that no matter what the situation is, there is a joy that you can find. And honestly, when you live in that gratitude, when you live in that joy, when you live in that space, people will see that and they can find inspiration themselves in that. So I would encourage you not to try to go around inspiring people. That's not your job. That's not your job at all. Your job is to simply present the best of you to the world. And in that, people will find inspiration. I hope that answers your question.
Tyler, any other questions?
I'm looking on my side. Right now, we don't have any other questions.
Well, let's go ahead and open up the floor. If you would unmute yourself, if you want to ask a verbal question, now is the time to do that.
Andre.
Yes.
This is Douglas.
Hey, Doug.
I know that you have a bright and positive attitude, but Has there ever been a time in which you personally thought that you were going to give up?
Absolutely. Absolutely it was. In fact, that was recently. When my wife and I separated, that was one of the toughest times that I've ever experienced in my life. And what I realized was that it was important for me to find not only what made me happy, but also who I was. And you would think the fact that I was 45 years old when this happened, that I would have had a pretty good grasp of who I was. But after you've been married and in a way for over 16 years, I had no idea who I was outside of being connected to this other person. And so honestly, Douglas, I felt like my world was falling apart. I felt like it was, like I did not know how. I did not know how I was going to move forward from that. But again, it was the kind of thing where I had to go internal and I had to find the strength within. I had to find out, wait a minute. What really makes me happy? What really is it that makes me want to get up in the morning? What is it that makes me want to take the next breath? And when I was able to take that breath in and say, okay, another one's coming after that, I started to see my way a little more clearly. I started to focus more on purpose. I started to focus more on what are the things that really inspire me? What are the things that really move me? And I started focusing on that. And I let go of what I thought people wanted from me and simply started presenting what I had to offer. Once I started doing that, things started turning around for me. And I have to say, I'm probably happier than I've ever been in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Lamondre, we got a question from Nick Ballinger. He says, how do you catch yourself in communication when you find yourself not being authentic, and when you do not want to show vulnerability?
Here's the thing. I mean, we have this need to not present weakness. We have this need to not be vulnerable. And here's the thing that I found, though. I found that when I am most vulnerable is when I have the most strength. When I can be just exactly who and what I am, when I can bring my entire self to the table, that's when I am the strongest, because I am living then in exactly who I am. But then the second thing that I realized about that too is that it's more empowering for other people to see that. It's much more empowering for someone to meet the authentic Lamondre Pugh than it is for Lamondre Pugh to present a facade that is only a shell of who and what I am. And I will tell you, it takes great courage. It takes great strength to really show up as who you are. I can remember when I was younger, I can remember thinking, okay, I gotta be the sharpest one. I've gotta be the strongest one. I've gotta be the fastest one. I've gotta be the slickest one. And the truth is, not every day was I the strongest, the fastest, the sharpest, the smartest, or the slickest. And sometimes I just didn't feel like it. I didn't feel good. But here's the thing. Now that I embrace all of who I am, it's much better for me to show up that way. And honestly, the concept was that I didn't want people to see the imperfections. I didn't want people to see the bad side of me. I didn't want people to understand that, yes, I had weaknesses or I was frail. In other words, I wanted people to see my perfection. But this is what I realized. The world didn't need my perfection. The world needs my presence. And so if I simply show up and I do what I can do with what I have at the time that I can do it, that there is much more value that comes from that. And not only that, I am a much happier and more secure person for that. Now, does that mean I still don't have those instances of insecurities and weaknesses? Absolutely. In fact, I just bring all of that to the table with it. And so that's how you show up authentically, to show up as who you are and recognize that who you are without any supports or trappings is enough. You are enough.
I see we have a question from Brian Wolf, but first we have a question from Charles P. Austin Jr. You want to go ahead and ask your question, Charles?
Lamondre,
Yeah, Charles.
what obstacles from your family, if any, did you face, and how did you overcome those?
Charles, you may want to turn your microphone up.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question for him. He said, what obstacles did I face from my family and how did I overcome them? You know, Charles, my family was super protective. They were, you know, and so one of the biggest obstacles that I faced with that, and I'm talking about my immediate family, one of the biggest obstacles that I faced was the idea that they wanted to protect me so much that they almost sheltered me. And when I turned 18, I experienced severe culture shock. Severe culture shock. And the reason that I experienced this culture shock because I went out into the real world and I realized, whoa, you mean there are people who really do think differently and don't like me just because I think differently? Or you mean to tell me that there are places that I can't get to just because somebody had the idea that they didn't want me to be in there? And so I think one of the biggest things that I had to overcome was really breaking free from that protective shell and stretching out on my own. And the thing was, man, I always kind of did my own thing. But still, yeah, you know, with moms and especially being a single mom, she really, really tried to shelter me. But the truth is I had to break away from that and I had to show them that I could handle it. So what did that mean? That meant that there are times where I had to fall on my face and I just had to bite it. And I did not tell them anything about it because I knew that they were going to run to the aid. But in them running to the aid and running to my rescue, that would also mean that they could control me in that situation. And my thinking was, no. I have to feel this. I have to experience this. I have to grow through this. So the biggest way that I overcame that was really, I just had to break out. I had to get out of the house. You know, it's awfully hard to stand on your own when somebody's telling you what time you got to come in or what time you go to bed and that kind of thing. So you just had to step out and walk away from that, man. And I think everybody's had that experience where they had to launch out on their own, and it's the same thing.
We got a question from Brian Wolf, and after him, there's another question from Bernie Holiday. But Brian Wolf, you can ask your question.
Thank you. This is not so much of a question as a compliment to Lamondre. I'm very impressed with your presentation today.
Thank you.
Talked to us from your inner being and you connected extremely well and you talked to us one-to-one. Extremely good. I loved your story and your message.
Thank you.
I hope that you record your messages and share them on podcasts or whatever, but you obviously have something to share with the world, and I hope you keep doing it, and I wish you well with that. I just had one question. I'm not sure if you're aware. I was fascinated that you brought up the quote from Dorothea Brand. I actually have the book that she made that quote in, which was written over 80 years ago. It's an old book, and it's rare that I ever hear her quoted, but it's been a powerful driver in my mind as well over many years. So I thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. It's a powerful quote. And it's just something that resonates with me about, you know, acting as if failure were impossible. You know, when you think, when you can move as if you have nothing to lose, man, the power that has, it's amazing. So thank you, Brian. I didn't think anybody would have picked up on that. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hello, my our next question was from Bernie Holiday. What role do you believe vulnerability plays into personal authenticity?
I think the only way that you can have any authenticity is to be vulnerable. I think that it is probably the chief component, or if not the chief, one of the chief components in truly being authentic. Because to navigate in a world just as you are, without the masks, without the facades, without the what we perceive as being protections, means that you're vulnerable. So in order for me to have a real connection, I have to let you in. In order for you to feel anything genuine from me, I have to allow you to peek in. So that opens itself, that in itself is vulnerability.
I have another question. I believe this is from Trent Kennedy, or maybe someone sent this to him. But how do you know you have found your purpose, and what do you believe affirms to someone that this is indeed his or her purpose?
Let me say this. When we talk about purpose, understand purpose does change, because as you grow and you go through life, you change and your circumstances change. So it's not the kind of thing where it's just, okay, I'm a baker and I'm a bake all my life and that's all I'm ever supposed to do because my purpose is making people happy through cakes. All right. But when we talk about finding the purpose, I often look at it this way. What are the things that I'm passionate about? What are the things that I'm really, really good at? And what are the things that I'm having impact in? What are the things that make me feel as if I see the fingerprint of God in my life when I do it? You know, I often say that a part of my purpose, and notice I say a part of my purpose is to help live on purpose. And when I say that, what I mean is that it's not always that I'm out speaking. It's not always that I'm out creating content. It's not always that I'm doing those things. But a primary function of Lamondre Pugh is that. And that's one of the things that I do better than most people. It's one of the things that I absolutely love. It's one of the things that I would do even if I wouldn't get paid for it. I would do it. And I would do it gladly. And many times that's where you find your purpose, in the things that you're good at, in the things that you love to do, in the things where you see you have an impact in. And honestly, sometimes those things change. But the only way to find it is to execute, is to do it, is to jump, is to make it happen. And I will tell you, there is no definitive answer in this at all. I remember when I was younger, I used to think, man, if I could just get a sign, if I could just, you know, the sky open up and it would just fall down, this is what you are supposed to do, Lamondre. And you go out into the world and you do that thing. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that at all. In fact, I'm still discovering every day what that purpose looks like for me. But every day I'm still walking with intention.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have one last question. First, we have a comment. Is you deliver a powerful and inspirational message, and thank you so much. And do you believe that one can have multiple purposes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that it's fluid. I believe that. And the reason that I believe that is because life is fluid. You know, I believe that we operate in different capacities at different times with different people in different circumstances. Sometimes it's my purpose or it's my role to lead. Sometimes it's my role to learn. Sometimes it's my role to be an inspiration to people. And sometimes it's my time to be inspired. So with those ebbs and flows of life, absolutely, our purposes change, and we can have multiple purposes at one time. And I will tell you, even this right now, I love doing this. I love speaking. I love sharing ideas. I love seeing the light bulbs come on. I love seeing people say, you know, Lamondre, you are a good speaker. That's good. But more importantly, I see through your presentation where I'm a star. I see where I can make it. I see how I can do better. That's what I love. And I'm going to do that in whatever capacity I can until the day I fly. So I appreciate the opportunity. I thank Toastmasters International, and I thank each and every one of you for listening to this little country boy from South Carolina today. Thank you all so much.